I was told the family dinner was adults only. So my teen daughter stayed home. When I got there, my sister's kids were already fighting over dessert. I just cut them off from the joint trust account. And then I should have known something was wrong when Claire used the phrase adults only in her message. There are no boundaries in my family. They manipulate people under the guise of etiquette. But I told Avi she couldn't come. My 15-year-old daughter, who hasn't left my side since her father left us for my best friend. Yes, that really happened. And now I was telling her she wasn't invited to dinner with people she still considered decent. The lie was perfect. Polite. Wrapped in that fake warm tone my sister uses when she's about to deceive someone. It's just adults this year. It's easier that way. Easier for whom? For Claire, who never threw a party without turning it into a theatrical performance where she was the incomprehensible matriarch. I wore the black dress my ex used to praise when he still remembered to look at me. I drove to their colonial monster in the suburbs, the kind of place where everything looks expensive but somehow empty. Dan opened the door with a gin and tonic and that smug theatrical smile you get when you're married to someone who controls every detail of your life. And right there, before I even entered the house, I saw them. Claire's children, Emma and Noah, in the dining room. They were arguing over dessert. I didn't move. I just stood there in my heels while Emma yelled that she had one less cookie and Noah threatened to tell Grandpa. Claire walked in as if everything was perfectly normal. "Oh, the kids are just visiting," she said. "Dan's parents are running late." She smiled at me as if we were sharing a secret. I didn't smile back. Ava was home, probably reheating leftover pasta in the microwave and pretending she didn't care. And those two troublemakers were eating lemon bars and yelling at a party I wasn't invited to, as I was told. I sat down. I was silent. And I remembered everything. By dessert, Claire was joking that I always overthink everything. And our brother Matt was talking about the stock market as if he didn't owe me $5,000 for a short-term loan 3 years ago. The same brother who insisted we set up a family trust and then didn't put a penny in it. Claire and Dan promised they would contribute too. Spoiler alert, they didn't. I funded it. All of it. Because I believed in inheritance. Because I was still stupid enough to think family meant something. That night, after I drove home in silence, I didn't scream. I didn't call anyone. I logged into my account. I deleted all the names except mine and Ava's. I changed my password. I blocked everything. They had no idea what I had just done. But they would find out soon enough. Let me know when you're ready for part 2. I waited exactly 6 days. I didn't say a word in the family chat. I didn't respond to Claire's passive-aggressive message. "Hope you got home okay." I didn't react when Matt sent a blurry photo of his new watch with the caption, "Hard work pays off." On the 7th day, it all started. Claire texted first. It was innocent enough. "Hey, can you check the trust fund account? Something weird is going on." Emma's school deposit didn't go through. No punctuation, which was a red flag for me. I stared at the message. I could have replied. I could have lied. But I was tired of playing their games. An hour later, Matt wrote, "Hey, did someone change the login for the trust account? I'm trying to withdraw money for car repairs that you said I could spend." I didn't say that. Claire called. I didn't answer. Then Dan texted me directly, which he had never done before. "Stacy, we really need to talk about the trust fund. This concerns everyone." He sounded like the neutral voice of reason, not the guy who once asked me if Avi really needed private school, because community colleges build character. That night, I opened my laptop, poured myself a glass of wine, and reread all the transactions from the last 3 years. Noya's speech therapist. Emma's piano lessons. Matt's emergency dental surgery, which for some reason cost $3,800 in Vegas. None of them ever asked. They just assumed I would pay for everything. That I would keep everything afloat. That I would keep quiet because I was responsible. I was tired of being that person. The next morning, I sent a message to the group chat. Just one line. "Effective immediately, the family trust is dissolved. Please find alternative financial solutions." Claire replied within 5 minutes. A long paragraph about how I was being unreasonable, how normal families don't do this, how Emma's admission to Yale depends on this money. Matt replied, "Wait, is this a joke?" Dan didn't say a word. I didn't respond. Instead, I forwarded the official documents from the bank. The closure of the joint account, the transfer of the remaining funds to Ava's trust account. Then I turned off the chat. I didn't know how quickly everything would fall apart. Emma's tuition payment was due in 3 days. Dan had already bought a new grill and a golf trip, thinking the bill would cover tuition. Claire called my mom and cried. My mom, who hadn't paid attention to family financial decisions since the days of AOL, suddenly wanted to make peace. And Matt showed up at my door. At first, I didn't recognize the knock. It was too quiet, as if whoever was knocking didn't want to be there. I opened the door, expecting a delivery. Instead, there stood Matt with a six-pack of craft beer he couldn't afford and that fake smile he always used to get out of any situation. He didn't even say hello. He just raised his beer as if it was some kind of peace offering and said, "I thought we could talk." I let him. Luckily, Ava was at a friend's house, because as soon as he sat down, as soon as he stopped playing the part, he said, "You can't just push us away, Stacy. That bill was for all of us." No, it wasn't. It was for all of us, but it was real for me. It was supposed to be for all of us, but I was the only one who treated it like it was real. Matt used it as a checking account with no consequences. Claire used it as a buffer for her lifestyle. And the whole time, they were making fun of me behind my back about how Stacy likes to control everything. I didn't even argue with him. I just asked him one question. When was the last time you put money in? He froze. He looked at his beer and then mumbled something about meaning to do it last year, but things were tough. Matt's always got tough things going on, and I always covered for him. I reminded him that I had used money from my savings to support this fund. After the divorce, when I was barely keeping my head above water. After Ava came home in tears because her father didn't come to her school concert. After I got the bill for the counseling sessions I didn't even go to. He said, "Yeah, but you make more money than me." As if that justified everything. I didn't yell. I didn't cry. I just asked him to leave. I said the trust was gone and we had nothing to talk about. He left without finishing his beer. The next morning, I found out that Claire had caused a scene. She called my mother, my aunt, and even one of our old neighbors from childhood who still sends us Christmas cards. She told them that I had broken down, that I had suddenly cut off my family. She didn't know that my lawyer had already sent official notices. And as soon as they arrived, the money was legally frozen in my daughter's name. I didn't even need their consent to do that. I was the only one who had ever put a penny in that account. The consequences were swift. Dan's parents refused to help pay for Emma's education, calling it Claire's problem. Matt's car was taken away. And suddenly, the same people who hadn't even bothered to ask how I was after my husband left started trying to contact me again. My mother showed up unannounced. She said she wanted to make peace. But it wasn't about peace anymore. It was about boundaries. For the first time in many years, I felt like I was standing on solid ground. Alone, perhaps, but solid. I had no idea what would happen next, but neither did they. 3 weeks passed and Claire didn't get in touch. Not a message. Not a call. Not even one of her barely disguised, just checking in letters. I thought maybe she'd finally given up trying to wriggle out of the situation. I was wrong. It started with an invitation to dinner. A formal one. Delivered in person. On heavy paper with gold embossing. The kind Claire used to send for her children's birthdays when she still thought people cared about themed cupcakes and homemade lemonade. This time, it was an invitation to a family celebration. The kind we hadn't had in over 10 years. And right in the middle of the invitation was written, "Claire and Dan invite you, with love. Family is everything." Ava saw it first. She took it out of the mailbox and held it as if it were cursed. She had been quiet lately, looking at me as if she wasn't sure who I was becoming. I knew she missed Emma. I knew she didn't understand everything I had done. Not yet. I didn't tell her not to get involved. I just said I'd think about it. The next day, I got another message from Matt. A long one. He apologized. He said he'd thought things through, and realized he should have been more responsible. He said he missed the way things used to be. That he missed me. Then he said he was going to the reunion and hoped I would come too. I hesitated for a moment. I'm not going to lie. Part of me wanted to show up in a fancy dress, smile while they all tried to be friendly, just to see how nervous they would be. But then Ava asked, "Are we going?" And I saw something in her eyes that I hadn't seen in a long time. Hope. Not hope that they would apologize or even change. Just hope that I would say yes. So I did. We arrived on a rainy Saturday afternoon. Claire's house was decorated even more than usual. Lanterns in the trees, rented patio heaters, food ordered. Everything was for show. When I walked in, it was as if someone had turned off the sound. Claire immediately came up to me, spreading her arms as if we were going to hug. I didn't move. She said, "I'm glad you came. We really need to talk." I replied that now wasn't the time. I spent most of the evening on the back porch talking to my cousin, whom I hadn't seen in years. Ava left with Emma, and for a moment I wondered if maybe things could change. But then I heard it. Claire was in the kitchen, unaware that I was standing around the corner, and she said to someone, "She'll change her mind. She always does. Stacy lives for drama." At that moment, I made my decision. I went back, asked Ava if she was ready to go, and we left without saying goodbye. The next morning, I withdrew the last deposit I had set aside for emergencies. I transferred it to a separate fund for Ava's education. I blocked all legal documents that still had the word family in them. Claire invited me over, thinking I would eventually give in. Instead, I burned my bridges. They'll all find out about the new rules soon. 2 days after the meeting, I received an email from an unknown sender. The subject line read, "Trust documents, urgent discrepancy." At first, I thought it was spam. But the address was that of a law firm, one I hadn't hired. I opened the email. Apparently, Claire had hired a lawyer. She was trying to argue that since the family trust was designated as a joint asset and I had never asked them to sign formal waivers when they didn't contribute, she was entitled to reimbursement of her children's share. It was a stretch. Legal, Ave Maria. But she submitted a letter claiming that I had agreed to allow them to use the funds indefinitely. And worse, she attached an email that looked like it had been sent by me. Only it wasn't my email. It was a forgery. A poor forgery for anyone who knows how to read email headers. But Claire didn't know that I had worked in IT before moving into consulting. She didn't know that I still kept all my emails in an archive. And she certainly didn't know that forging emails like this wasn't just unethical. It's a crime. I forwarded everything to my lawyer. He called me back 10 minutes later. "Do you want to take this to court?" The question hung in the air longer than it should have. I said no, not yet. Instead, I sent one email. Just to Claire. "Withdraw the lawsuit. Otherwise, the next person to contact you will be from the prosecutor's office." She didn't respond. And the lawyer who contacted me? The next morning, he sent a confirmation letter. "Your sister has withdrawn all claims. Please disregard the previous message. We apologize for any inconvenience." That was the end of it. Officially. But not for me. That evening, Ava came into my room and sat on the edge of my bed. She was quiet, as if she were carrying a heavy burden. "I saw Emma's story," she said. "They say you cut them off because you're jealous." I didn't say anything. She looked at me and said, "I know it's not true, but why didn't you just explain it to me?" I looked at her for a second, and I realized that she had no idea what those people were really like. Not yet. She still believed that adults made all the decisions. She didn't understand that sometimes you have to choose yourself, even if it means keeping quiet. "I'll tell you everything," I said. "But not today." She nodded and walked away. That night, I didn't sleep. I wrote a letter. Not to Claire. Not to Matt. To Ava. Something she would read one day, maybe after college, maybe after I died. So she would know the whole story. So she would never forget how much your family can betray you, and how strong you have to be to say, enough. But the story wasn't over. Because 3 weeks later, I got another invitation in the mail. This time, it wasn't just an invitation to dinner. It was a wedding invitation. Matt's. And my name wasn't on the guest list. But Ava's was. The wedding invitation came in a silver envelope addressed only to Ava. Inside was a cream-colored card with elegant handwriting and the name of Matt's bride, whom I had never met and who, I assumed, either didn't know the whole story or didn't care. Ava stood in the kitchen, holding the card in her hands, trying to look casual. She said Emma was going. That she wanted to see everyone again. That maybe I should go too, even if I wasn't invited, because it was just family. I didn't tell her about the fake email. I didn't tell her that Claire had tried to sue me 3 weeks ago for money she never earned. I didn't tell her that I almost got her aunt arrested for fraud. Instead, I told her she could go. I'd drive her. I waited at the wedding venue. A vineyard, as expected. Claire always said Matt had refined taste, which I now realize, included expensive wine and borrowed furniture. I watched the guests arrive in pastel dresses and polished shoes, and I didn't feel a shred of regret. Until Claire walked out the front door, alone, and headed for my car. She didn't say hello. She just stood by the window and looked at me. "You won," she said. I didn't respond. She continued. "No one will talk to me. Dan is furious that I hired lawyers. Emma said she's ashamed of me. Even Mom has turned cold." I still didn't say anything. "You got what you wanted, Stacy. You punished us. Congratulations." She turned to leave, but stopped. "Do you think Ava will thank you for this? For cutting her off from her cousins, from her family?" One day she'll hate you for this. And she left. Ava came out an hour later. She didn't say a word on the way home. That evening, she asked me the question I had been waiting for. Why didn't you just leave? I told her the truth. Because some places you don't go back to, even if you're invited. Especially in cases like this. She didn't understand. Not completely. But she nodded. Weeks passed. One morning, I opened my email and found a message from Claire. The subject line read, "Weekend getaway, we want to start over." It was a group invitation. Everyone was on the list. A family home on a lake. A picnic. Even a healing circle, whatever that meant. Ava saw it too. She wanted to go. She missed them. She missed the idea of their existence. I told her she could go. But I didn't. Instead, I decided to spend the long weekend alone. I booked a small cottage in the mountains, turned off my phone, and finally started writing that letter to Ava. The one she'll read someday when all this is just a family story with scars in the past. The meeting took place. I didn't ask how it went. She didn't say much. But one evening, a week later, she came into my room and handed me something. It was a photograph that Claire had given her. It was all of us. Me, Claire, Matt, and our parents. We were children. Smiling. Posing. Wearing matching sweaters. I don't know if they'll ever change, Ava said. But I'm glad you have. I put the photo in a frame. Not as a memory. As a reminder. Because sometimes the only way to protect your child is to become the person your family never expected you to be.